Ube Shabander, who joins us now. Ube, why now?
Well, it's very interesting. Look, we got to remember that OPEC is a cartel. And this decision by Qatar means that while it may not impact overall oil prices or oil production levels, it means now that Qatar is no longer beholden to the decisions made by OPEC overall on production cuts. Now, let's remember, you can still be a major oil exporter and energy exporter, but not be a member of OPEC. Now, Qatar produces around 600,000 barrels per day. That's not a lot. It's important, but it's not significantly enough to change oil prices or oil production levels. I mean, let's look at Russia at around 11 million barrels per day. Saudi Arabia is produces and exports that. And of course, the United States, which is reaching all-time level highs of oil and crude oil production levels. So while this move may not impact oil prices immediately, it does represent a very important political, symbolic move by the Qatari state.
What advantage does Qatar have by not being part of OPEC now?
Well, because Qatar's real money, what it really makes its money, how it impacts energy markets, is liquefied natural gas. Natural gas is very important for the world, especially as winter is approaching. It's much cheaper. Liquefied natural gas, you can export it much quicker now. It may be, if oil is black gold, then natural gas may be the new platinum. So that puts Qatar in a very important position in the overall energy markets globally. When it comes to no longer being part of OPEC, it means that when OPEC decides to cut oil prices or cut oil production levels a certain amount, Qatar no longer has to follow those decisions made by OPEC. It's mostly now going to be a question of whether Saudi Arabia and the Russians agree to oil production levels. Oil prices are at an all-time low.
Why?
Well, it's interesting. If you look at what President Trump says in the U.S., he says that it's because he reached an agreement with the Saudi king to cut oil prices low, which means that you have to keep oil production levels high. The Saudi government says that, no, this is a matter of there's just an oil glut, a lot of oil out in the markets. The Saudis and the Russians have met recently, probably to agree to an oil production cut. We've seen OPEC saying that oil prices are low. They want to readjust it so that oil prices go back up. That's not going to be necessarily a good thing for your average consumer, especially when it comes to U.S. politics and President Trump trying to take credit for oil prices being at an all-time low. The Saudis and the Russians may have something to say about that.
How much, I guess, does this decision, Qatar ditching OPEC, how much of that does that play into their, I guess, displeasure with the Saudi-led blockade on their country?
Well, certainly there's a political symbolism involved here. Now, Saudi Arabia is essentially the de facto head of OPEC, is a cartel. Each member of OPEC has the same amount of votes. But look, Saudi Arabia and Russia are the biggest oil producers in the world. Only Saudi Arabia is a member of OPEC, although the Russians have a say here, even though they're not officially a member of OPEC. But it means that Qatar no longer has to sit at the same table as Saudi Arabia when it comes to decisions on oil markets.
And of course, Qatar's energy minister, he was quoted actually as saying that the withdrawal decision reflects Qatar's desire to focus its efforts on plans to develop and increase its natural gas production. As you mentioned, going from actually 77 million tons per year to 110 million tons in the coming years. That's a lot. That's
a lot. It means a significant amount of revenue for Qatar. And that's important for Qatar as it continues to face a blockade by the surrounding Arab states and particularly by Saudi Arabia. So it means that Qatar may be able to, now let's also not forget, it shares some of those natural gas fields with other Gulf states, such as the United Arab Emirates and with Iran. And in fact, Qatar exports some of its natural gas to members of the blockading states. So it seems that both sides seem to benefit here, and Qatar is looking to really cash in on its version of black gold.
Right in time for the new year. All right, Ube Shabander, thanks for being with us.